Everyone, in this video, let's continue with SA 620 using the work of auditor's expert. Okay. In the previous months, we discussed about SA 600 using the work of another auditor, SA 610 using the work of internal auditor, now SA 620 using the work of auditor's expert. The first heading we are going to discuss is the scope of this essay. This essay deals with the auditor's responsibilities again, okay, regarding the use of an individual or an organization work in the field of expertise other than accounting or auditing, because auditor, a chartered accountant, is an expert in the field of accounting and auditing. Then, when the work is used to assist the auditor in obtaining the sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So, whenever I use the work of another person who is not an expertise in the fields other than the accounting and auditing, then such person would be known as auditor's expert. Okay. The auditor's responsibility for the audit opinion. Again, he's as a CTPR, right, continues to be responsible. He has the sole responsibility for the audit opinion expressed. The responsibility is not reduced by the auditor's use of the work of the auditor's expert. If the auditor concludes the work expert is adequate for his purpose, he may accept the expert's finding or conclusions in the expert field as appropriate audit evidence. Whenever the auditor, based on his evaluation, concludes that the auditor's expert work is adequate, then he may use the same as an audit evidence, uh, considering it as sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Okay, now let's understand the meaning of auditor's expert and compare it with the management expert's definition. Auditor's expert, an individual or an organization possessing an expertise in the field other than accounting or auditing, whose work in that field is used by the auditor to assess obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So I am not an expert. For example, testing the inventory. Okay, we have some, for example, it is a steel manufacturing company. Okay, a steel as on 31st March is production process. Okay, I may not be very good in checking what is the percentage of completion of that particular steel right process. I may appoint or I may take the help of an engineer who is quite good at it. He's an expertise in the fields other than accounting or auditing, right? I will take his help and he will do the calculations give to me. And based on my evaluation, if I feel it is adequate, then I will take his help, right? I will take his report as an audit evidence. Okay, this is what that person engineer would be known as auditor's expert. Similarly, the management will also be not knowing how to value that steel, right? That's why they will also appoint an expert. That expert will be known as management expert. Okay, management expert is appointed by the management to assist the entity in preparing the financial statements. Is the objectives of the auditor. The objective of the auditor is to determine, first I have to determine whether I have to use the work of the auditor's expert, whether I have to determine the use and the work of an auditor's expert. And if using the work of an auditor's expert to determine whether the report is adequate for the auditor's purpose, I have to check whether it is adequate for my purpose. Requirements of this essay. A brief given is briefly it is given here. Let's correlate with this essay directly. Okay, with the pronouncements. Determine the need for an auditor's expert. Determine the need for the auditor's expert. Give me a minute. Determining the need for the auditor's expert. If an expertise is a field other than accounting or auditing is necessary to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, the auditor shall determine whether to use the work of the auditor's expert. He can determine whether he has to use the work of the auditor's expert. Okay. So those which are marked in blue color are the questions. Okay. That will be a question type. Okay. And those I'm going to mark in green, it's for our understanding, maybe the answers. Okay. Now, second point is determine the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedure. Determine the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedure. While determining it, the auditor shall consider the following matters. What are the things? Nature of the matter. Which matter does it relates to? Which matter the expert's work relates to? The risk of material misstatement in the matter to which the expert of the expert's work, the auditor's knowledge and experience with the previous work performed by the expert, whether the expert is subject to the audit firm's quality control policies and procedures. So first thing I have to check is the nature of matter, what the type of matter is involved into, the risk of material misstatement, significance of the expert's work, then auditor's knowledge on of an experience with the previous work with that expert, and that whether the expert is subject to the audit firm's quality control policies. And there are five things I have to consider while determining the nature, timing, and extent of the procedures. Now, third point is that evaluating the competence, capabilities, and objectivity of auditor's expert. Objectivity again means impartiality. Okay, competence means qualifications. Okay, uh, of an auditor's external expert. Now, evaluation of objectivity shall include inquiry regarding the interest and relationship that may create threat to expert's objectivity. Now, fourth is obtaining an understanding of the field of expertise of the auditor. I have to understand which is the field of expertise of the auditor's expert. Okay. For that, I have to determine sufficient understanding of the field of expertise by to enable the auditor to determine the nature, scope, and objectives of the expert's work and to evaluate the adequacy of that work for audit purpose. To evaluate the adequacy of the work for audit purpose. Now, fifth one is that agreeing with the auditor's expert in writing. I have to make an agreement in writing. Okay. The auditor shall agree in writing when appropriate. But to be included in the agreement, first is the nature, scope, and objectives of the expert's work, the respective roles and responsibilities, the nature, timing, and extent of communication between the auditor and the expert, including any report that is to be provided. Like at the end of the day, he has to provide a report, right? That has also to be communicated in this agreement itself. Expert to observe confidentiality requirements because it's so critical component, right? So he has to maintain confidentiality. So these are the four things to be given in the agreement briefly. Okay, first is the nature, scope, and objectives of the expert's work, the respective roles and responsibilities, the nature, timing, and extent of communication between the auditor and the expert, including the form of any report to be provided by the expert, the need for the auditor's expert to observe confidentiality requirements. Now, the here is that evaluating the adequacy of the expert work. This is a main point, right? I have to check, he has performed this work. I have to check whether his report is adequate for me to carry on my audit. Okay, how are we going to do it? The auditor shall evaluate the adequacy of the auditor's expert work for auditor's purposes, including the relevance and reasonableness of the expert's finding or conclusions and their consistency with other audit evidence. He has given me some report. Okay, if other audit evidence which I have obtained via additional procedures, then it's fine. So, how it is relevant and whether it is reasonably matching with, and whether it is reasonably having the conclusions and assumptions, and then whether it is consistent with the other reports which I have obtained. If that expert work involves use of significant assumptions and methods and the relevance and reasonableness of the assumptions and methods in the circumstances, I have to check whether the relevance and assumption is relevant and reasonable. If the expert work involves the use of source data that is significant to the expert work, then I have to check the relevance, completeness, and accuracy of the source data. If he's going to rely on some data, I have to check whether the data is complete, whether it is reliable, whether it is accurate, whether the figures are given as proper. I have to check all those. Okay. The three things to be checked here is the relevance. Okay, let's read it again. The auditor shall evaluate the adequacy of the auditor's expert's work for auditor's purposes, including the relevance and reasonableness of the expert's finding and conclusion and the consistency with other audit evidence. If that expert's work involves uses of significant assumptions and methods, the relevance and reasonableness of those assumptions and methods in the circumstances. If the expert's work involves use of source data that is significant to the expert's work, the relevance, completeness, and accuracy of the source data. Now, if the auditor determines the work of the auditor's expert is not adequate, then he shall agree with the expert on the nature and extent of further work to be provided or perform additional audit procedure as appropriate in the circumstances. He may again delegate him further work or he may do it himself. Okay. Now, who is an auditor's expert? He is an expert, right? In the field of other than accounting or auditing. What are the fields that could be related to? The valuation of complex financial instruments. Something is valued, something asset liability of something is valued, goodwill is valued. Those will be known as valuation areas. Actuarial calculation of liabilities associated with the insurance contract and employee benefit plan. Like for employee benefit plan is going to be gratuity is going to be paid whenever he retires if his period of service is greater than 5 years or more, right? So it is going to happen at beyond a certain point of time. I have to discount it. So I have to value it. I have to include the probability factor in it, right? Those will be known as actuarial calculation. Then estimation of oil gas reserves, the valuation of environmental liabilities, the interpretation of contracts, laws, and regulation. I may not be good at interpreting the contracts. I may need a lawyer's assistant. Such lawyer will be known as auditor's expert. The analysis of complex or unusual tax compliances issues. I may not be good at a US tax laws. Okay, I may need some experts help in analyzing the US tax laws. Okay, then that person will be known as auditor's expert. Let's repeat it: valuation of complex financial instruments or other assets, then actuarial calculation of liabilities associated with insurance contract or employee benefit plan, estimation of oil and gas reserves, valuation of environmental liabilities, interpretation of contracts, laws and regulations, analysis of complex or unusual tax compliances issues. Now, expert may be needed to assess certain one of the more of the following, right? What are things I have to check? I have to determine where there is a need for an auditor's expert. Either it may be an obtaining understanding of the entity and its environment, including its internal control, or identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement, determining and implementing the overall responses to assess the risk, and determining and designing the performing of the audit procedures, evaluating the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence obtained, informing the financial statements. Informing an opinion on the financial statement. An auditor who is not an expert in a relevant field other than accounting or auditing may nevertheless be able to obtain sufficient understanding of that field to perform the audit without an auditor's expert. Okay. For example, experience has already been experienced with such auditing entities. Okay. Then with that experience, he may be going over the audit currently. Okay. Education or professional development in that particular field. For now, I was an auditor earlier, but now I've also read that particular area. Then I'm very well. I can do it myself. Okay. I need the help of the auditor's expert. Discussion with auditors who have performed similar engagement. I have few peers of mine who have performed similar engagement. Then I could discuss with them and perform this audit. Okay. In other cases, how the auditor may determine it is necessary or may choose the use of auditor's expert to assist in obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Consideration when deciding to whether to use an auditor's expert may include. I have to check whether I'm okay, and whether it is needed to appoint an auditor's expert. Then what are things to be determined? Whether the management has used a management expert. I have to check whether the management has used a management expert. And how much is the significance of the matter. Whether it's highly significant, then I have to surely go for a auditor's expert. Whether it's immaterial, then I need not go for an auditor's expert. The risk of material misstatement in the matter. The expected nature and procedures to respond to identified risk, including the auditor's knowledge and experience with the work of the expert in relation to such matters and availability of alternative source of evidence. Okay. Whenever there is availability of alternative source of evidence, if I'm going to use the work of auditor's expert, I will be able to corroborate with the evidences. Okay. Now, management experts in the preparing the financial statements, the auditor's decision on whether to use an auditor's expert may be also be influenced by the following factors. See, first thing is that I have to what are the factors that have to be considered when deciding whether to use an auditor's expert. That includes whether I have to check whether the management has used the management expert's work, the nature and significance of the audit matter, and then risk of material misstatement, and the expected nature and procedures to respond to the identified risk. Okay. The first thing is satisfied. Okay, they are using some management expert. And what are the additional factors that have to be considered by me while appointing an auditor's expert? The nature, scope, and objectives of the management expert's work, whether the management expert is employed by the entity or is partly engaged money to provide the service, extent to which management can exercise control or influence the management expert's competence and capabilities, the management expert is subject to technical performance standards or other industry requirements, any controls within the entity over management expert work. See, for example, management expert work is guided by the SA 500. Let's leave about it for a moment. Okay. But if the management expert is appointed, okay, he's an independent person, okay, he's not employed, but he's an independent person, partly engaged only to do his work, then I can rely on his sources. Or else, if there is no control, okay, he has the independence, okay, there is no control that can be exercised, or there is no influence that can be made by the management. Even then, I can rely on his report. Or he is subject to some technical or professional standards, like we have standards on auditing. He is also subject to some standards of this particular course. Then even then he will be I can rely on such report. So if I can able to rely on the management expert's work, then I need not appoint someone known as auditor's expert. So these are the factors that will be considered before appointing the auditor's expert whenever there is a management expert in the organization. Now, the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedure with respect to the requirements will vary depending on the circumstances. While the factors that may suggest the need for more extensive procedure are the work of auditors can matter that involves subjective and complex judgments. It is so critical and it is so subjective that that may be take some more time. Proceed with extensive procedures. The auditor has not previously used the work of the auditor's expertise. I don't have. I'm very new to this audit itself, and he's also new to me. So I have not used his work. So I have to check, recheck, do everything to check whether it is adequate and appropriate for my audit evidence. The auditor's expert is performing procedures that are integral to the audit rather than being consulted to provide on an individual matter. Whatever he does is so integral with audit. Okay, if something goes wrong, then this will also affect. So that's why it is so important. That's why I have to proceed with performing additional audit procedures. The expert is an auditor's external expert and is not therefore subject, because as an auditor's external expert, he will have his own set of quality control procedures. I may not imply my quality control procedures on him, right? That's fine. Okay, that's why I will be performing additional audit procedures. Okay, four things are there. One is the auditors. Okay, what is the question? Where are the factors which may require the external auditor to perform extensive audit procedure? There are four cases. One is that auditor's experts work relates to significant or complex matter which involves subjective and complex judgments. And second one is that our auditors not previously used the work of the auditor's expert, and that's he has not no prior knowledge. And then three, the auditor's expert is performing procedures that are integral to the audit rather than being consulted to provide advice on the individual matter. And the fourth one is the auditor's expert is not an external expert and is not therefore subject to the firm's quality control procedures and policies. Now, see, engagement teams are entitled to rely on the firm's system of quality control unless the information provided by the firm or other parties suggests otherwise. Okay, the extent of reliance will vary with circumstances and may affect the timing and extent of the auditor's procedure with respect to such matter. There is competence and capabilities, objectivity, then evaluation of auditors' experts' work, adherence to regulatory legal requirements, and agreement with the auditor's expert. These are the five things, okay, which may determine the extent of the reliance. The first one is the competence and capabilities, then objectivity, evaluation of adequacy of the auditor's expert's work, adherence to the legal and regulatory requirements, and agreement with the auditor's expert. See, reliance does not reduce the auditor's responsibility. He continues to be responsible. What are the sources from which I can get the information about the competence, capability, and auditor's expert? There is, see, 6 points. Okay, first one is the personal experience. I have already worked with that expert. I know about him. Okay, he is honest and integral. So, okay, fine. I will reply on honest report after ensuring due diligence and placing clients on his report. Then discussion with that expert, discussion with other auditors, and to check whether this procedures are being proper. Knowledge of the expert's qualification, membership of professional body, or something like that. Published papers or books written by that expert. Auditors firm's quality control procedures and policies. See, I've already worked with him. That's why personal experience is there. Or I have discussed with him in so extensive manner that I understood all the procedures done by him, and I have quite and I find it reasonable. And then I have discussed with other auditors who have been engaged in similar audit, and they acknowledge that the procedures followed are proper. Or he is a person who is an expert possessing the qualification or membership of some professional or technical institute. Then okay, it's fine. The last but one is published books or paper which is written by him, which has the procedures set out by him, and such procedures are also followed by him. And then whatever he work does, he does is within the line of the quality control procedures set by my firm. Even then, it is fine for me. Now, other matters that may be relevant include the relevance of auditors, experts, competence to the matter for which the experts work. Okay, and then is used, and then auditors experts competence with relevant to the accounting and auditory requirements, whether unexpected events or changes in conditions of the audit evidence obtained from the results or indicate that it may be necessary to reconsider the initial evaluation of the competence, objectivity, and capabilities of the auditor's expert as the auditor's progress. See, first one, he has been competent. Okay, I am also competent enough. He's also competent. I have just little competent, less competence, but he has the high competence. Okay, even then I am feeling that he's quite good at work. Okay, or else he's also complying with the accounting and auditing requirements. He's well versed in that also, so that he can able to correlate the things together. Or else some events has occurred which made me to recheck my initial evaluation. Okay. Now, when evaluating the objective to an external auditor's expert, it may be relevant to inquire the entity whether they have any interest or relationship, discuss the expert applicable safeguards. Okay, if there are interests, what are the safeguards which are going to be imposed by them? Okay, interest and relationship. It may include financial interest, business or personal relationship, provision of other services by the expert, and then in some cases, it may also be appropriate for the auditor to obtain a written representation from the auditor's external expert about the interest and relationship with the entity of which it is aware of. Now, obtaining an understanding of the field of expertise of the auditor's expert. Under this, we are going to have go through some points. Okay, the auditor's expert's field relevant to the auditor's understanding may include whether the expert's field is an area of specialty within it that are relevant to audit, any professional standards or regulatory requirements are there, assumptions and methods, including models where applicable, are inconsistent with the generally accepted principles, and then the nature of internal and external data or information which is being used by the auditor's expert. Now, these are things which have to be considered while getting an understanding of the auditor's expert work. Now, and also factors that may suggest the need for more detailed agreement. Okay, we had and responsibility. So there may be some cases where a detailed agreement may be needed. Okay, like the auditor's expert will have access to sensitive and confidential information. Okay, respective roles and responsibilities are different from those normally expected. Multi-jurisdictional legal or regulatory requirements apply. Okay, the nature matter to which the auditor's expert work relates is highly complex. The auditor has not previously used the work performed by the expert, and greater the extent of auditor's expert work is significant in the context of the audit. So 6 points are there. Let's repeat it again. Auditor's expert will have access to sensitive or confidential information. The respective roles and responsibility of the auditor and the auditor's expert are different from the generally expected one. Multi-jurisdictional legal and regulatory requirements apply. The matter to which the auditor's expert work relates is highly complex. The auditor has not previously used the work which is performed by that expert. The greater the extent of the auditor's expert work and the significance in the context of the audit. Cases where there's no written agreement, right? But there could be some agreement may be included. For example, planning memoranda could be taken as an agreement, okay? Or it's a working paper related to the audit program. The policies and procedures of the auditor's firm. If it is an internal audit expert, that's fine because I'm an employee, he's an employee of me. I can just state the policy and procedures of the audit firm. Then, see here, no documentation may be required in the auditor's working paper if the auditor's firm has detailed protocols covering the circumstances in which the work of such expert is being used. What are the respective roles and responsibility? See, the auditor's expert will perform detailed testing of the source data. I have to test the source data, right? Because I'm going to rely on such data. I have to test whether it is reliable first, right? Whether it is reliable, accurate, complete. Consent for the auditor to discuss the auditor's expert's finding or conclusion with the entity or others. And then agreement to inform the auditor's expert of the auditor's conclusion concerning the expert's work. Working papers. Agreement on the respective roles and responsibility of the auditor and the auditor's expert may also include an agreement about retention of each other's working papers. When an auditor's expert is subject to as a member of the engagement team, the expert's working paper form a part of audit documentation. See, this means an internal auditor's expert, auditor's expert, which is internal to the firm, then his expert's working paper will be forming part of auditor documentation. Subject to the agreement to the contrary, auditor's external expert's working papers are their own and do not form part of audit documentation. See, external expert will give me a report and I have to rely on it. But internal expert, I will also have working paper and also a report. Okay, both will form part of my documentation. Communication. Effective two-way communication facilitates proper integration of the nature, timing, and extent of the auditor's expert procedures with work on the audit and appropriate modification of the auditor's expert's objectives during the course of the audit report. Okay, confidentiality. It does there are specific procedures to evaluate the adequacy of the auditor's expert's work. Okay, what are those? Enquiries with the auditors. I have to review those working papers and reports. I have to obtain corroborative procedures. Like I have to observe what the work is going to do. I have to examine the published data. I have to confirm the relevant matters with third party like other auditors. Perform detailed analytical procedure, reperforming the calculation. There are some calculations. I have to there could be minor oversight issues, right? Instead of plus, I could have given as minus, something like that. Okay. Discussion with another expert with relevant expertise. Discussion with the auditor's expert report with the management. These are things I have to do to evaluate the adequacy of the auditor's expert's work. Let's repeat: inquiry of the auditor's expert, reviewing the auditor's expert's working papers and report, corroborative procedures, discussion with another experts with relevant expertise, and discussing with auditor's expert's report with the management. What are the factors when evaluating relevance and reasonableness of the findings or conclusions of the auditor's expert? One, I have to check whether it is presented in a manner which is consistent with standards. Then, whether it is clearly expressed, there's no ambiguity. Then, based on the appropriate period and taken into consideration the subsequent events if they are relevant, subject to any reservation or restriction on use, whether there has any implications, whether he has any limitation on scope, and whether it is having an impact on the report which is given provided by him, based on the appropriate consideration of errors and deviations encountered by the auditor's expert. These are the factors to be considered when evaluating the reasonableness and relevance of the conclusions which have been arrived at by the auditor's expert. Auditor uses expert work involves use of significant assumptions and method. Factors relevant to the auditor's evaluation of those assumptions and methods includes whether generally acceptable or whether they are consistent with the requirements of the AFRF specialized model and whether it is published model consistent with those of the management, and if not, what are the reasons and what is the effect of such differences. Okay, four things: generally accepted principles or whether inconsistent with the requirements, and then it is dependent on specified model, and then whether it is consistent with the management's work. Now, source data used by the auditor's expert. When an auditor uses the source data that is significant to the auditor's expert's work, procedures such as following may be used to test the data. See, first one is verifying the origin. Where did it begin from? I have to verify and test the data. Reviewing the data for completeness and internal consistency. Completeness, accuracy, consistency, those has to be verified. Okay. Now, inadequate work. If the auditor concludes the work of the auditor's expert is not adequate, the auditor cannot resolve the matter through additional audit procedures, which may involve further work being performed by both expert and auditor or include employing another expert. It may necessitate to express a modified opinion in the auditor's report in accordance with 705 because the auditor has not obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence, which means the auditor's expert has work is not adequate, and also I am not able to perform additional audit procedure to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Then I have to give an opinion in a modified manner. That is modified opinion in accordance with SC 705 because there is a limitation on the scope of an audit. Like I am not able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Reference to auditor's expert in the auditor's report. See, it's quite simple. The auditor shall not refer the work of an auditor's expert in the auditor's report containing an unmodified opinion. Whenever there is an unmodified opinion, I should not refer the auditor's expert's work. If the auditor makes a reference to the auditor's report for better understanding of modification to the auditor's opinion, he should indicate such reference and does not reduce the auditor's responsibility on the opinion. See, whenever there is an unmodified opinion, I should not give a reference to the auditor's expert work. Whenever there is a modified opinion, I should give a reference to the auditor's expert work and also state the fact that such a reference does not reduce the auditor's responsibility for that audit or for that expression of opinion. Last topic: consideration for agreement between the auditor and the auditor's expert. Okay, there is a list which states the matter that auditor may consider for inclusion in any agreement with the auditor's external expert. Okay, just an illustrative list. First is like the nature, scope, and objectives of the auditor's expert's work. Like we said here, right? Agreeing with the auditor's expert in writing. So let's move on here. See, nature, scope, and objectives of the expert work, respective roles and responsibility, nature, timing, and extent of communication, and observe confidentiality requirements. Yeah, these 4 points. These 4 points are we going to discuss it here. Okay. So, respective roles and responsibilities, and then here, communications and reporting, and then the confidentiality. In confidentiality, whether you have to go with ethical requirements, additional requirements imposed by laws and regulations, and specific confidentiality provisions, which I am going to request to the entity. Then, communications and reporting, the method and frequency of communication, whether it is written or oral or frequency, how frequent it should be. Okay, and then we'll complete the work and report findings. Then, the auditor's expert's responsibility to communicate promptly any potential delay in completing the work, and the auditor's external responsibility to communicate promptly instances in which the entity restricts the expert's access, and then Communicate to the auditor all information that the expert believes to be relevant to the audit, and then communicate circumstances that may create threats to the expert's objectivity and relevant safeguards. These are things to be communicated, like methods, frequency, when I will be able estimating to complete it, whether there is a potential delay, or there are instances where they restricts the access to any records, and then whether all the information I'm having the expert is getting, whether it's being communicated to the auditor, and whether there are any threats to objectivity, then he has to communicate such things. Okay, then relevant account and auditing standards, experts consent to be given, and then auditors review of the auditor's external experts work. We will test the source data, and then access to the entities records and files, procedure for communication, and then access to each of the papers, sorry, access to each of the working paper, ownership and control of the working paper, external auditors responsibility to perform with due skill and care, competence and capabilities, then expectation on each other, any restriction, or then agreement to inform the auditor's external expert of the auditor's conclusion concerning the expert's work. Okay, so things to be each other. And then nature, scope, and objective of the auditor's external expert's work. The nature, scope, and objectives of the procedures to be performed. Objectives of the auditor's external experts in the context of materiality and ROMM. And technical performance standards is there, assumptions and method used and models were applicable, then effective date from which day the testing is going to start, that is to be mentioned. With this, SA620 comes to an end. I hope all the major areas have been covered, and it's an exhaustive revision lecture. Hope you find it useful. If you really find it useful, please do like, subscribe, and share to your friends for better reach. Thank you so much.